Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea and I am the Youth Coordinator for Rare Youth Revolution, and I will be hosting this talk today. I'm here with Everett and Emmy. Would you both like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I am Everett. I am 17, and I'm going to be going to the Perkins School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in a couple, uh, a week or so.
Um, my name's Emmy. I'm 21, and I'm going to be going to the Vision Impaired Royal National College for Blind in Hereford in September.
Thank you for your introductions. So, the first question I'd love to ask you both is how would you describe your condition to someone who maybe hasn't heard of it before, and how does it affect your daily life?
Well, with BBS, there comes with a lot of symptoms, mainly cysts and a bunch of systems, those being eyes, which can lead to vision loss, and the kidneys, which can, for some people, they will have to get a kidney transplant, and also unsatiated hunger, which will drive the person insane.
Um, yeah, so it's BBS is a rare genetic condition, and the actual full name is Bardet-Biedl Syndrome. There's many different variations of it. I think there's now like 22 different variations of that genetic disease,
Something
and
like that.
you have to have two of the basically have to have a faulty gene from both parents to be able to have it. And yeah, like Everett said, it kind of affects mainly sight, but then a lot of other things. So some of the ones he didn't mention was polydactyly is quite a common one with some people as well, where they're born with extra digits, and there can be some level of autistic traits or autism in there as well. And then there's so many others as well.
Okay. So, in terms of you both personally, how does that affect your daily lives?
Not much, but I've had it for a long time. It's not really that much once you get used to it.
Well, the biggest one obviously that for me is affects daily life is obviously the loss of vision. But then I also have issues with the whole hunger issue and kind of issues with weight and food and that side of it, as well as they're kind of like the main ones really. But yeah, the sight is definitely the biggest one.
Okay. So, what would you say that the biggest challenge of that is for you, Emmy?
Um, with which one? Sorry, or both?
Well, yeah, for both.
With the sight, so there's lots of different aspects of the sight that I have. So I have very very little peripheral vision, no depth perception, and I've got quite random color blindness, and I'm completely night blind and light sensitive. So the biggest issue is kind of when we're going out at night or it's a really dull day where I really struggle to see. And then the food one, it's just you have just it's a lot of exercise to try and like you have to do a lot more effort than someone who doesn't have that to try and maintain kind of your own health. So it's
And,
like a constant battle of that kind of stuff, really.
and especially if people are not like don't like to go outside, then it's also hard with the hunger aspect.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, how does your condition affect your family life?
It's it's a bit hard because of, like Emmy said, the vision loss. And sometimes my family can get a little bit over the top with my vision awareness, because sometimes I can get aggravated with how much they ask me questions, because with friends, they don't ask you questions even though your family is trying to set you up for better life. The hunger issue. Luckily, there is a drug that helps with it, but sometimes it doesn't from time to time, especially if you don't take it. Also, one part that I forgot to mention earlier is that a very rare part is can have seizures, so that also affects my family very very hard as well, especially on me.
Mhm.
I'm very glad that you said about kind of OT and family asking questions, because they do a lot. Because with my family, I know that they've got like my best interest at heart, but it can get really and like yeah, so aggravating or something when they constantly ask you like, "Are you okay? Like, can you see something?" Or if it's like them constantly tell you there's something on the floor or there's a step there, it really frustrates you because you want to be as independent as possible. And then I'd say the main thing is just, I'd say more emotional stuff, because with my family, like, especially when I was like first diagnosed, and then now there's some things where it can be overwhelming or upsetting if obviously your child gets told they can't see as much. So I'd say the main two things really.
And especially once you get less vision too,
Yeah.
since mine is degenerative, it can get really hard with things that get out of place, especially when you try not to use a cane indoors.
How did your condition affect your school life, education, and or work?
Well, with my eye condition, retinitis pigmentosa, it was a little bit hard for me to originally learn Braille because I had a lot better sight, so it was hard learning not to look at the Braille and just using my fingers. That took a long while. And especially with uh the what was I gonna say? The ADHD side, also not helping with the learning as well. So it was hard learning Braille. And then later in life, with that problem, it was a lot harder for me to use the tools that were there for a public school. So it was a lot harder with just having a lot less like small print. When it was around 6th grade, I could not read the small print. So it was a lot harder to use my vision.
Well, the thing is for me, like I said, I wasn't actually diagnosed with my condition until I was 6 years old. So that's when I was about so that's when I was in like year 2 of primary school. In year 3 they kind of then introduced touch typing and guide slash mobility kind of skills, which took quite a while to kind of adjust to doing. But then instead of doing handwriting practice like all the other students in primary school, I'd sit at the back of the class and do touch typing training, which now I'm really glad I did, because when I was doing stuff at secondary school, because I was in mainstream school, both primary and secondary, I was doing all my notes and all my lessons by touch typing because I obviously couldn't see the keyboard. And then at secondary school, I went to an all girls school, and there were a few things that were a bit tricky. So trying to get resources adapt in time, or about like trying to find where my classroom was, or trying to find my friends like in a crowd, something was quite hard. But there was kind of people to help with that.
And especially the emotional side as well, with like later in life during like that secondary part of
Yeah.
school, especially with the discrimination that happens with
Mm.
visually impaired people. then
But I
that
wasn't.
emotional part.
I wasn't introduced to Braille until I was in year 7, so I was about 11 years old. So I kind of had less vision, so I think it was easier for me to learn it then. And it was more like a backup rather than actually to use it. But yeah, for the emotional side, I actually end up having a counselling session every week at school.
Wish I had that.
Yeah, and then I did my GCSEs, and because I didn't have the right support in place, I failed them the first time round. I was really close. I was like 3 or 4 marks off each pass grade. So the second year I then did a retake year, and I was able to get like one of my grades up from a 4 to, well, just under a 4 to like a 7, which is like from a D to an A, with the better support. And then I did my A levels. I had to do them during COVID, which was not really that much fun, especially since I was doing health and social care and BTEC science, and the BTEC science was a lot of practical work that we had to adapt. And then I did a year at Malton College, which was food science and nutrition. Some of the practical was a bit hard because it was trying to work out like, oh, I can't see stuff on a coloured chopping board. I need to have a white one, so colour contrast. But I managed to pass the practical with all my fingers intact, which was a big plus. But now we're at the point where we know that with my vision, I'm not as independent as I need to be able to do full-time work, which is why we now looked at a college that is specialist rather than mainstream.
So you mentioned how you didn't have the right support the first time, but you did the second time. What was the difference between the support that kind of was more helpful for you?
I think it was one thing where it was like, it was less subjects. So the first time it was like, obviously 7 subjects with like 19 exams, whereas the second time it was only like 6 with about 7 exams, I think. So the fact that it was kind of more focused on each one, but also I was allowed to just I think the teachers made more an effort. I was using my typing stuff down more in class. I didn't have an LSA as much of the time, but that was just kind of looked at, and like they offered some support with my exams, kind of with reader and be able to type, and it just made it easier.
I didn't have enough I had some support, but like Emmy said, that there wasn't like enough support. That was also the case during some part of my school life.
So what do you wish did happen that kind of would have given you that support you needed?
Well, them like actually helping me, it was a tougher time. It's just that they had large print, but it wasn't like always there. Like I would have to ask for it, and there was not like I couldn't always get it right away.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because some of my resources, because the LSA team had to take them away to a different team to do them, they would take maybe 3 or 4 weeks to do something I needed for maybe only a week's time.
Yeah, so just having the support more readily accessible.
Correct. Yes.
So how has your condition affected your hobbies, and have you had to adapt to these in different ways?
Oh, now here we go.
Yeah.
So back in 6th grade, I had a very deep dip. So I was always a big reader. I would always use small print. But then when I had that big dip, I had no idea. So I had to adapt to audio. That was a big jump. But I could never truly read Braille back then. So I never had real access to what's like Braille, because I did have a great Braille teacher, but it wasn't really like I didn't get into the more complex stuff. So I never really got able to read Braille books. And because of that, I prefer a lot more audiobooks.
Okay.
And also, it's been with my Lego hobby, it's been degenerating over the years because of my vision. But that's mainly the two biggest changes that I had to do with my hobbies.
So hobbies. So when we first kind of discovered that I had vision and then had BBS, we first looked for something I could do. So we actually found a RDA horse riding group. I did, and so I did that for quite a few years, but we didn't have to adapt that too much. I'd say the ones that I did in primary school that I probably wouldn't do now because of my vision getting worse is I did art club and kind of drawing and painting and stuff like that. It's a bit trickier now because my vision's got worse.
Yes,
Um,
a lot of other stuff that I did too was drawing and all that. I had to shift to Braille art, which is a
yeah.
lot than I first anticipated.
And then in secondary school, a lot of the clubs I did were either something you could do like through orally doing it, or like for example, a lot of it was kind of choir or it was music, so something that's either oral or something that you could very easily do with your hands in touch and hearing rather than more your sight. So I did choir, I did drumming. I like to play drums. I had to do 2 percussion groups as well because once you do the lesson, you have to be part of the club for it. Chess club was a big favourite of mine, which I
Yeah,
still do.
I love chess too.
Because we've got an adaptive chess set where you got the different colours have got a different, like the blacks have got like a little thing on top, so I can tell they're the blacks rather than the white ones.
Yeah, do you have some of the spaces are raised?
Yeah, and then they actually sit in there, so it's less easy to knock them over.
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
problem that I always have, is knocking the pieces over.
What else? Yeah, history club was a big one at school. And then now kind of a lot of stuff I do is I say history. I volunteer at the Heritage House, Delafrey Abbey on a weekend. And I do that because I don't have to read anything. It's all kind of, I learned it all orally, and I answer any questions the people who come to the Abbey have that are oral. So there's no kind of reading because of my visual stuff. But I'm an Abbey host, so I'm just in one area rather than being a tour guide because the rooms downstairs are too dark and the stairs aren't accessible enough for me to do that. And then my other one is doing my videos for my YouTube channel. And that's really tricky because editing takes me a really long time because I can't see the footage I've taken. I have to listen through and pick out through what I've said or whether I can hear noise in the background to work out where I need to edit it to put different things in.
Everett, is there any other hobbies that you want to share as well?
Well, over the years, it's more shifted to more of my hobbies. After I met one of my friends, I've gotten a lot more hobbies. Mainly watching stuff and doing Minecraft and all of those has been harder and harder.
Minecraft. I love Minecraft.
Love it too. But like if I'm trying to build on water, it's so much harder because of the non-contrast. And
yeah,
so annoying that they don't do that. The accessibility with stuff is crazy that they don't have much. It's bananas.
Yeah. Well, I love my gaming, so that was the main one. And I've also recently got the Hogwarts Legacy game. And the accessibility, it says it has it, but actually in terms of colour contrast and light and dark, it's actually not that great. And it's been that case with like that and Minecraft and a couple of other games.
Minecraft has that audio stuff, but I've noticed that it's only for the chat, which really bothers me. I haven't experimented with the menus as much. Have you experimented with the menus at all?
Not really, no.
Well, that moves on a little bit to the next question, which is what could people do to help make your daily life easier?
Accessibility for video games. It needs to change. Because if things do not change, then people with visually impaired or blind will just go bananas over the games that they do. It's not changed, then me and Emmy won't be able to play the games.
That is one of the things, but then also for me, it's also like I don't know, one thing that people can change. This is kind of more family, sometimes other people as well. It's basically where they try and give direction, and they'll say like over there or that way, rather than actually give specifics.
Yes,
or they say like something's on the side or in the cupboard. I'm like, which side? There's like 3 of them. And the other one is when I'm kind of going out and about, it's more so in London, but kind of about in general in UK. I've noticed that people like don't mind pushing out the way or stepping over your guide cane.
Oh, that, yeah.
But weirdly, when I came for a trip to New York when I was in one of my years at the sixth form at school, and I actually found that people were so much nicer there, like so much better at stuff to do with that than in London.
The United States could really take a leaf out of Japan's book. Even back when I was in 4th grade, when I went to visit it, there was so much accessibility, and there's so much that we could learn from them.
Do you want to give a few examples?
One example is different like tones at the different stations.
Yeah.
They've improved it a little bit with bus transportation, where it like says the name, but it doesn't really, I still don't understand. Like, it does not really help that much. I would prefer to have it a tone as the next stop. And also better, there needs to be have you seen the talking traffic light sort of system?
Yes.
There needs to be a lot more. I've seen some, but it's rare.
Also, I've seen something that's I don't know how common it is in the US, but I saw it I think once while I was there about having braille on like food packaging.
No, there's not that I've seen.
Because like obviously here it's like just on medication mainly, and I just think that using that more broadly would also be so much help.
More inclusion with braille menus.
Yeah,
that would be a lot more helpful. I've seen maybe one, but that's it.
I haven't seen any. And actually, I've had to look at the menu online because I can just see it, because I can't see the actual physical one at all. Because the font is minuscule.
There's one at Applebee's. It's a restaurant. That's the only one that I've found, really. But it's not as updated. Because I know we've looked to see where other menus are, braille menus, but it's very rare.
Yeah, I haven't seen any. So
what would you say would be the best kind of practice for accessibility for you both?
Definitely braille packaging a lot more, because especially on medication, because then you don't know what type of medication there is, and it's very important.
Yeah,
especially with medication, and also food labeling as well. A lot more accessibility with games. There's obviously the blind games, but there's very poor accessibility.
Yeah. And I'd also have the other one of just kind of, for people kind of obviously stepping over guide cane and kind of pushing out the way if they like trying to get on the train and stuff. I'd say with that, it's kind of just more awareness for people of like how it is for someone who is in that environment who can't see as much. Just awareness to that and other disabilities in general, really. Just that they could probably do more to be aware of people in that space and what they have to go through in terms of their own lives.
Less discrimination for people, and not just thinking like, oh, because they're blind and visually impaired, they can't do fill in the blank.
Also, I feel like a lot of people look at the disability rather than the actual ability of the young person or of yourself.
Yeah, so just kind of changing the standard of what is possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what are some future goals you both have, and what obstacles do you face with trying to meet these due to your condition?
Ooh, good question. One of the goals is two things: making video games a lot more accessible for blind people, and also improving the instructions for Lego kits, because I've built Legos. I know how it works. It's just that the instructions are poor. Like, I know they have smaller sets for visually impaired and all that, but they don't have anything for the bigger sets. And that's where people mostly go for, the bigger sets. Just imagine like Braille instructions for the Death Star.
Yeah.
Imagine that. That's a very complicated set.
Or like the Hogwarts Castle one you can get. That's a huge set.
Or the new Eiffel Tower. That's like one of the biggest ones out, is the second largest set to date. Try making Braille instructions for that. That's a very big dream that I want.
I'd say for me, so a few goals for me for in the future is that, well, I'd like to be able to kind of teach Braille and also do more things to make more Braille things be out there. Like I said, the menus and the packaging and stuff, and kind of help do that. Also, just with kind of in general on my YouTube channel, is to like spread more awareness and kind of make people more aware about what it's like being vision impaired, and to show that just because you can't see or you have some kind of disability, that you're still able to do everything you want to achieve, and you're still capable to do everything that everyone else can do, but just show different ways of doing it. And so just spread awareness and help do Braille projects and make things more accessible for other people, really.
Yeah. Everett, do you have other personal goals that you would like to share?
Being a blind chess grandmaster. Chess is like a big hobby, and not many people are blind chess grandmasters, and I'd like to change that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I've looked into it a little bit, and there's a few things that you need to have, but I think it's possible.
Definitely.
It definitely would change a view on the visually impaired community. Like, oh, you can't become a chess grandmaster, or like something like that. Well, I'm gonna prove you wrong.
Yeah, why not?
And just change a standard for what people think. Like, if that does not say change standard, I don't know what does.
Yeah, so I think very similar, kind of both ones are kind of, we really want to try and break down barriers for the visual impaired community, really.
And lastly, we always ask our guests, do you have any advice for someone watching who has your condition, or advice for any other young person living with a rare disease?
Prove people wrong. If they say that you can't do something, prove them wrong.
Yeah, and don't ever let someone say that you can't do something just because you have a rare disease or a disability. You can always achieve your goal, or dream or whatever it is. It's just you have to maybe do it in a different way or find a different way of doing it, which may take longer, but if you still get to the same goal, then you say that you've been able to achieve that, but in just a different way.
And if you can't do it right away, then when people say that you can't, just prove them wrong. That's what I'm trying to do every day.
I also think that don't let someone else kind of, like, don't be afraid of being yourself just because someone else says that that's the way you shouldn't be. Like, don't put as much emphasis on what people assume should be the norm, because being normal or being fitting into that mold is just boring. So,
and plus, you're special in your own way.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching, and for Everett and Emmy for joining us today. It's been great learning about BBS and how it affects you in your daily lives. If you want to get involved with Rare Youth Revolution through one of our Rare Talks, get in touch with us through our website or social media channels, which will be linked at the end of this video. Bye for now.